apologies, little mortal. Your ever so wise kingdom of Renovarman decided to send a battalion to my southwestern border, thinking they can conquer my land. Poor fools had to be dealt with. Now, to what's important. How is your casting practice coming along? You're struggling to get it right. Well now, don't tell me that I've failed you as a teacher. Go on. Show me. I see the problem. Do you? No, it's not your gestures, nor your incantations. It's your mind. Remember, casting magic is not simply a dance one practices, nor a poem one recites. It takes all intention in mind, body, and soul. Come, sit with me for a while. Something is troubling you. I'd like to know what. If it's about the war, then I can assure you that you are just fine. No living creature, let alone an entire army, is capable of sneaking onto my land without my knowledge. And while I may be a tad rusty, Renovalman's armies really haven't evolved since I last fought them. What they send is mere child's play. That's not what is bothering you. Then what? Oh, little mortal. No. You need not worry about your kingdom, nor the deaths of its armies. I suppose I've forgotten what it's like to feel guilty for killing. I apologize I hadn't noticed it sooner. I can assure you, dear, that their deaths are not on your hands. Simply put, you are my student, and I am your master. Those soldiers had every right and opportunity to abandon their mission, but they continue to attempt to challenge me. It was stated long ago to all kingdoms far and wide that any mortal who treads on my lands pledges their soul as forfeit. It was their decision to die, not yours. You still seem troubled. I'm sorry. It has been many years, lifetimes even, since I've tried consoling anyone. I do not know how I may alleviate your dreadful thoughts. The years have numbed me to the weight of death in my name. During the War of the Long Night, I had been cruel, sadistic even. But now, I am simply a teacher protecting his student. How I used to be in those times? Well, is that something you're sure you'd like to hear? It would seem it was a time period most kingdoms try to forget. Well, you can recall recall how I initiated the war. I declared it to all nations who pursued me after my wife's passing. I began this war with a grand gesture of power. I had casted a spell so powerful the world has never seen magic of such a caliber. And do you see this? Well, I suppose that is the point. You don't see this. This orb of twisting and coiling shadows. This is a spell commonly known as darkness. Within this space, all light is absorbed and no light is able to pass through, even when magic in origin. This is an ancient spell, one that is no longer taught within the kingdoms due to my use of it. See, during my time, most practiced mages that use this fairly niche spell could only create it in a small area of effect, a few feet at best, while I myself had covered the entire sky. Imagine, throughout horizon to horizon, a void completely bereft of light. The sun would plague my vampiric nature no longer. This had easily been my cruelest feat in the war. How's that? Well, let me restate it, my dear student. Just what happens when you encapsulate a kingdom in eternal darkness for an entire year. It was the royals of these kingdoms that had wronged me, not their people, not their bystanders, not the ones I once longed to heal. No, they were not the ones who wronged me. Yet they may have suffered the worst of it. Without the sun, all kingdoms soon succumbed to famine. Plants withered and died as the sun never rose again. And day by day the world grew colder and colder. And this act alone starved and killed hundreds of thousands, possibly millions. But that wasn't all. Within this eternal night, my shadow spawn had been born. Monstrous creatures of amorphous shadows resembling wretched and terrifying beasts scoured the lands, slaughtering any living creature in their paths just to kill. You see, while formidable, it wasn't just their violent tendencies that made them a threat. The same way that I can, they could travel through the darkness, melding with it, becoming one, crossing miles with no exhaustion. Not only that, but their writhing shadow forms were impervious to most attacks. They couldn't be cut down by swords. Arrows would simply fly through them, and any attempts to beat them with blunt force would only result in following through with the weapon, with no effect. The only thing that could keep my shadow spawn at bay is fire, and wholly attuned weaponry, which at the time was incredibly rare, only being bestowed to the highest knights and paladins of the churches. While, yes, fire was easily accessible to all, The reflexes of a commoner couldn't begin to compare to that of my shadow spawn. And it wasn't even just the commoners, but the armies who suffered greatly too. Hundreds of thousands, millions of soldiers would come marching to my home not by their will, but by the royals' will. I did not make their deaths swift and painless as I do now. Battles would last far longer than they needed to as my cruelty and anger got the best of me. Hours, even days, of slowly dwindling numbers as my shadow spawn devoured them in their sleep, only to be picked off by me as they retreat, ripping the blood out of every orifice. And that was one of the more peaceful ways for them to go. I need not traumatize you with my past transgressions. How I've been swift with them now? Well, see, the circumstances have greatly changed. Back then I had acted out of anger, of rage, of pain. I didn't just kill these soldiers. I didn't just kill these people. I hated them. From the very core of my cold, dead heart, I hated them. Back then I felt as if slaughtering them and torturing them would amount to some form of justice for my wife. I wished to hurt them as I was hurting, as she had been hurt. But now it's different. I simply take pity on them. Well, of course, it's been a few centuries since the War of the Long Night, and these poor, uneducated fools don't know what they're getting into. Their pawns led by other pawns, so I'll simply kill as many as it takes for them to realize how poorly outmatched they are, and they end up retreating. It won't last forever. Eventually the kingdom of Renovarman, as dense and stubborn as they are, they will realize that this fighting is pointless as they send more and more of their soldiers to die. Morale will soon enough come crashing down when they realize after a few dozen battles that they have made no ground, and the king will have to come and make the call as to how many soldiers' lives are worth one royal heir's life. The damn fools. If they wanted another heir, they could just produce one. I'm not sure I got that right. What are you thanking me for? For my kindness to the soldiers. I suppose it is a kindness, isn't it? Oh, please. Like the great vampire Lord Ashwin could care about those immortal fools. I could whisk them away in a storm of blood just to watch them drown one by one, and I would not even bat an eye. I simply make these things quick so that I can return to being your teacher, and more importantly, your lesson. Speaking of which, the war is none of your concern. Your studies are. Now, that we've gotten that out of the way and off of your mind, hopefully, let's continue with your lesson. I'd like to test you once more. Indeed. We've been practicing with our outer connections for some time now. Wands, staves, spell components, the whole lot. But you, little mortal, are gifted with an innate connection. And while it will take some time to master it, I'd like to at least attempt to create something. Cast some magic with nothing but your innate connection. You've casted enough with outer connections to understand the feeling. Now we take away the tracing lines and allow you to freely paint. Now go on. Try. Performance anxiety getting the better of you. Too bad. Try again. There's something there. Go on. Try again. Keep going. Yes. 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 What? No. By the gods. I didn't think this was possible. What are the odds? You needn't worry about me, little mortal. These are not your typical burn marks. No. I've withstood the torrents of hellfire, dragon's flames, and all matters of infernos. Not one could truly harm me like this. No. This was not a matter of my shielding being overpowered. My vampiric nature was my weakness. Well, the only thing capable of burning me like that, little mortal, is the sun. You see, my dear, my wife had an innate connection of lunar magics, pulling magic from the moon. But you, little mortal, have an innate connection of solar magics, pulling magic from the sun.